Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, beautiful people. Thank you for joining Life with Shenita, another episode. I am Shenita Connolly, and this evening I have the privilege and the honor of having an attorney by the name of Chris Leopold join me for a conversation about personal injury law. It is definitely something that we need to make sure we understand, we know and understand. And so I thought, what better person to have this conversation with than Attorney Leopold. Before I bring him in, I want to make sure that we are reminded that Life with Shenita was started with a goal to help people overcome life's challenges and choose to live a vibrant life. And we know that that's not always easy, but it is possible. And I am truly an example of that. So if you would like and share this broadcast, like and share the broadcast so that others may see it and gain the information, the knowledge that will be shared this evening. So I want to just share a couple of statistics, and Attorney Leopold will come in and share his wealth of information, knowledge, experience in this area of law. But as I was thinking about the topic, and I did some research, as I oftentimes do, I found some statistics that talked about the number of people injured. So from the National Center for Health Statistics, a department within the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, has stated that around 31 million people are injured across our country each year that require medical treatment. 31 million across our country each year have been injured through an accident and require medical treatment. Another statistic that kind of stood out to me, it says in 2017, 169,936 Americans died from accidents. That's 49.4 people for every 100,000 Americans, which is quite a lot. So we have to be careful out there on the highways, byways, in the jobs, etc. So without further delay, I am going to have Attorney Leopold join me, introduce himself, and we are going to get this conversation started. So thank you for joining us this evening, and join me in welcoming Attorney Leopold. Good evening, Attorney Leopold.
Good evening. How you doing?
Wonderful. How are you this evening?
I'm doing well.
Wonderful. I just want to thank you for taking the time to be here and to share this information that I feel is extremely important for people to not only know, they may have heard about personal injury lawyers, but just to get a holistic view or outlook on this area of law. So I just thank you for coming to share this evening.
You're welcome.
So before we get started, I want you to introduce yourself.
Okay. As stated, my name is Chris Leopold. I was born in Shreveport, Louisiana. However, I was raised in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. My parents have been married for 49 years. I'm the oldest. I have two sisters. I have a sister that lives here in Atlanta, and I have a sister that lives in Dallas, Texas. I also have to add that from a family standpoint, I'm married. I've been married for 10 years, going on 11 years in October. And I also have a 7-year-old daughter who is in the second grade. I enjoy being, a family man. I enjoy being a husband, being a father. I'm a member of the Elizabeth Baptist Church here in Atlanta, Georgia. Faith is something that is very important to me, as far as that's something that has carried me along this journey as far as from childhood to the present, and still, like I said, helped me today. I initially started off as a public defender working in Fulton County doing criminal law, worked there for a while, left Fulton County Public Defender's Office, opened up my own practice where initially I was doing criminal law and personal defender work in Fulton County doing criminal law, worked there for a while, left Fulton County Public Defender's Office,
I'm just
opened
doing
up my own practice where initially I was doing criminal law and personal defender work. And I don't know what's happening. I'm getting the feedback on this end. I don't know if I'm
sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that, yeah, as of now, I've been just exclusively doing personal injury probably for at least the last 8 to 9 years.
Awesome. And you said something that stood out to me. Faith.
Yes.
You mentioned faith is the fuel in your life. So important. Yes. And I feel the same way. And another thing that stood out is you being a husband and a father. Yes. And your parents have been married for, did you say 49 years?
49 years. 49 years.
That's a big deal.
Yes.
That's a blessing to have that reference, those mentors.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yes. So as we get started, so let's do a little icebreaker.
Okay.
I always like to do icebreakers. So if someone was without sight, they were blind, how would you describe the color gray to them?
Color gray. I would describe it as distinguished, wise, cold, and professional. That's how I would describe the color gray.
I like that. Cold, distinguished, professional. I love it. I love it. You know, and that's what I love about icebreakers, these icebreakers, because you hear so many different views and thoughts on the colors and the subject. And so I absolutely love it. So thank you for that.
No problem.
So explain to me and the audience, what does it mean when you hear the phrase personal injury law or personal injury?
Okay. Normally what it means is it's dealing with the area of law that is trying to attempt to correct or compensate for some type of injury or harm that was done to a person. And normally when you think of personal injury law, it normally comes in the forms of what I do: car accidents, slip and falls, where individuals may be inside of a store and somebody have something wet and they fall, slip and falls, as well as something called premise liability. Premise liabilities are the kind where somebody is on someone's property and they get robbed or shot, where you can try to sue the apartment complex or the store or the facility where the action took place. However, for me in my practice, I deal with the personal injury as it relates to car accidents. I don't handle slip and falls. I don't do premise liability.
So only car accidents.
Right, I do only car accidents. That's
okay. Okay.
Oh, and tractor trailers as well, but normally people know car accidents.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So when we think about car accidents, and that happens a lot, particularly in Atlanta, I'm sure across the nation, as we know, but as a point of reference right here, because we both reside in Atlanta, we see it all the time. If I'm involved in a car accident with minor damage to my car, should I call the police or just get the person's car insurance information?
No, I would always say if you're ever involved in a car accident, I don't care how slight or if there's damage to your vehicle, I would always advise someone to contact the police. The reason for that being is that you have the police come to the scene so that a report can be made stating that there was in fact an accident. And then there's a way also to see if the person does have insurance. And when I say insurance, legitimate insurance. And also to make sure the person who's driving the car, there's some type of identification to say who they are. And the reason why I say that, you'd be surprised how many times I've had individuals contact me to find out that the person who presented the insurance card, that wasn't them. Or once they contact the insurance company, the person is saying I wasn't driving or I wasn't involved in an accident, and there's no type of documentation or proof to show that the accident did in fact occur on the day that you're calling about.
That's a great point. So call law enforcement regardless.
Absolutely.
So that it can be confirmed that whoever the person is truly that person.
Absolutely. And also it's used for documentation. A lot of times the officer would do an investigation of the car accident, and then the officer will a lot of times determine who he or she believes was at fault as it relates to the car accident. That's another thing that's very important. You have the proof that the accident occurred. You have proof that this is the person who was in fact operating the vehicle. There's proof that there is insurance on the vehicle. And last, there's a determination as to who was at fault as it relates to the accident.
Wow. That's good information. I knew someone who got into a car accident and the person who hit them jumped out the car.
Yep.
So they were at a loss for it.
And that happens. And I can tell you, it could be that the person may have had something illegal in their vehicle. It could have been that the person didn't have a valid driver's license. It could be that the person had a warrant for their arrest, or it could be that the person felt like, hey, I don't like police. I don't know how this is going to go down. Or they could have been riding in a stolen vehicle. There's so many different factors that can factor into that reason why a person may leave the scene.
So if I'm injured in a car accident, how long do I have to pursue the claim for injuries?
Okay. So if I'm understanding the question correct, like how long do you have it? It depends. What happens is this: under Georgia law, you have what's called a 2-year statute of limitation, right? And so what that means that if you have not resolved the case within the 2 years of the date of the accident, so let's just use today, for example. Today is August the 19th, 2021. So that means that anyone who has an accident on today, if they're not able to resolve this claim by way of some type of settlement, then by August the 21st, 2023, which is 2 years, by 5:00 p.m., the attorney for them or that person must have filed a lawsuit as it relates to that claim. Now, in my case, I like to do it before the 2-year statute of limitations, but I like to have a lawsuit filed and the person served. So you want to have a lawsuit filed and the person served, the person being the individual who caused the accident. So to answer your question, it's 2 years in order to pursue the claim or preserve the claim if you have not, in fact, settled before the 2-year statute of limitation.
So in other words, get to moving.
Right. So if you wait after that date and you have not filed a lawsuit, you lose the right to pursue that claim because the statute of limitation has run. So I would always tell them 2 years from the date of the incident. Make sure you file the lawsuit and have the person served.
And it's so important that you say the statute
of limitation.
Limitations. Yeah. And that they could vary based on the type of injury or the type of lawsuit, right?
Well, no, if it's a personal injury, car accidents, they're going to automatically be the same. They're going to be 2 years regardless. If it's involved in a car accident, it's going to always be 2 years. Now, there are other criminal charges that may have different statute of limitations on when you could bring a case. However, as most people probably know, there's not a statute of limitations on murder. So if you commit a murder, it doesn't matter when they find out. It could be 20, 30 years later, they can come back and charge you for that. But some other offenses, there's normally a set amount of prescribed time from a criminal standpoint that you can bring that allegation as far as the crime if the statute of limitation has not run.
Okay. Awesome. So if I'm injured in a car accident, should I try to see if I can work it out with the other person's insurance before getting an attorney? Or what's my first move? What should I do?
This is what I say. If you are in fact injured, I would say not to try to work it out with the other person's insurance company on your own. And the reason why I say that is because the insurance company represents the person who caused the accident, who injured you. So they're not going to be looking out for your best interest. They're going to be looking out for the best interest of the insurance company and the person that caused the accident. So what they will do is try to get you to say things or do things or maybe drag it out, hoping that they'll just drag you on closer to that, like I said, past that 2 year statute of limitation, and then it runs. But I would say not to do it on your own, because even with handling these type of cases, there's a procedure and process on how we work the case in order to make sure things are done right. For example, if you wait too long, let's say, for instance, the accident occurred, you don't go to the ER or you don't go get checked out by some type of doctor. If you wait 2 or 3 weeks from the date of the accident, then a lot of times the insurance company will use that against you and say that's what we call a gap in treatment, meaning that the accident happened on August the 19th, 2021, but you didn't go and see the doctor, get checked out until September the 2nd. So there's a gap in treatment, meaning from the time that the accident occurred to the time you actually saw treatment, there's a big gap. So they'll say that you must not have been hurt, because if you were hurt or injured, you would have gone to seek some type of medical attention. That's just one example, But no, I would always say if you're injured, definitely get an attorney, because the attorney can walk you through the process to allow you to know what to do, what not to do, what statements to make, what statements not to make. So I would say always get an attorney if you're injured. Don't try to handle it on your own.
Mm-hmm.
If you're injured.
Mm-hmm. That's good advice. I mean, really great advice, because a lot of times I'm sure people have tried to handle it themselves and it didn't work out in their favor.
Mm-hmm. That's how it happens all the time. And I say that because this is something I do every day. So I know how to handle the case, what the insurance company gonna do, what are the tricks. But you as an average person, lay person, you're not gonna know that. You're gonna think, hey, they're trying to help me, they're trying to get this done, they want to make sure that things are done right by me. And so you just think, hey, I'm gonna see if I can get it worked out. I don't want to get the lawyers involved. I don't want them to think that I'm litigious or I was looking to get a payday because I've gotten a lawyer. So you should always get a lawyer if you are in fact injured.
Mm-hmm. And how would you, I know you're an attorney.
Right.
How would you suggest that we search for, find, or locate a quality attorney?
Right. This is what I'll say, and I'll say this with all sincerity. I would say that the best way to get an attorney is to go with someone that you know and trust, who's used that attorney in the past and had great success. And what I mean by that is word of mouth. And what I mean by word of mouth is an attorney that he or she handles this particular area of law, personal injury. They've represented me before, and I had good success. And the reason why I say it, because I've done it. There's lawyers who advertise on the radio. There's attorneys who do billboards, and I've done that as well. Done commercials, do all of that. But the best way, and I will tell you, your audience, and anyone, even though I've done all those things, my clients have, for the most part, come from word of mouth, people that I have represented in the past. And to this day, that's where I get probably 90% of my cases.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Yeah.
Word of mouth. You can't go wrong.
That's the best way. Word of mouth, because you have someone who's giving you advice on this person did right by me. They're a great lawyer, or she's a great lawyer, and I was pleased with them. Go and seek them out.
Awesome. So let's go back to the car accident, because that's your area of focus.
Right.
So if I'm involved in that, or injured in that car accident, should I make a statement to the other person's insurance company about how the accident occurred?
No, that goes back to what I was saying earlier about hiring an attorney if you are injured at the beginning or the inception. The reason for that is, when you, like, as I stated before, the insurance company represents the insurance company and the wrongdoer. So they're going to be looking out for their best interest. So when they're trying to get a statement from you, a recorded statement, I have people that say, well, hey, it is what it is. The facts are what the facts are. I'm going to tell them what happened, or I told them what had happened. Sometimes I may get individuals who may contact me after making a recorded statement. I can't change that. But to answer your question, I would say not to make a recorded statement, because they're recording a statement. And the only reason, or the main reason, that the insurance company is doing it is to see if you're going to say something that possibly implicates some type of liability or fault on your part, so that it will reduce their liability on their part. And why do I say that? Just like most people know, when you're involved in a car accident, you're supposed to contact your insurance company, let them know that I was involved in the car accident, and they ask you what happened. You tell them. So when they've already spoken to their insured, the wrongdoer, the person who's caused the accident, they already know what happened, because their insured has already told them, I was involved in an accident, I ran into the back of Miss Scott, it was my fault. But they're still going to talk to you or try to get a recorded statement from you, hoping that you may say something like, well, I was driving down Terra Boulevard, and all of a sudden I hit my brakes because something was in the middle of the road, and therefore when I hit my brakes, it caused me to slow down, and your insured ran into the back of me. Well, in that scenario, they're going to say, well, you know what? We're responsible, but you're partially, we're 70% responsible, but you're 30% responsible because you hit your brakes fast and you weren't paying attention to what was in the middle of the road. They'll come with something as bogus as that to say, where they should have compensated you for 100% of your injuries, now they're only going to try to compensate you for 70% and say, because you were 30% at fault.
Mm-hmm. And if they have an attorney like yourself,
yes, I would not have allowed them to make that statement.
Right.
But if they've contacted me after, then we'd have to decide how we go with it. But from the beginning, if a person calls me, a potential client, and they have not made a statement, and I'm interested in the case, I would tell them not to make a statement. Once I become their attorney, I say, if anybody contacts you from the insurance company, tell them who your attorney is. I tell them to say my name and tell them that my attorney has instructed me not to make any statements or speak to anyone regarding this accident. If you have any questions, feel free to contact my attorney, and his name and number is, and tell them that. And then I handle it from there. And then I tell them, you're not speaking to my client.
You'll have to talk to me.
Yes, you'll talk to me. I tell them, or is your client willing to make a statement? No. What about if it's not recorded? No, we're not making a statement. My question is, have you all accepted liability? Yes. If you all have accepted liability, then there's no reason for my client to make any further statements.
I love it. I bet you're a bulldog when you're in that courtroom and you're representing them.
When I have to be, but then there's times that don't require me to be a bulldog. There's sometimes where it's just a matter of having a frank discussion with the other side to say, hey, we're not going to do this. I'm not going to be a pushover, but it doesn't require me always to be a bulldog. But you have to be firm, but you have to be fair.
And there are times, as you said, that you do have to take that stand, right?
Yes, you do. Yeah. Yes, you do. You do.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't want to think that you have to always walk around like that. Because no. It doesn't warrant it all the time. But when it warrants it, then you have to do it.
Yeah, I could see you. Yeah, I could see you handling it when it was necessary.
Right.
That's good though.
Right.
So if I'm involved in a car accident, should I take pictures of the damages to my car and the other person's vehicle?
Yes, and the reason why I said that's one of the first two questions. But when I find out what happened, the next action was the police called. If the police was called, who received the citation? They tell me about their injuries, and then I say, do you have pictures as far as the damage to your vehicle as well as the other person's vehicle? If they don't have pictures of the other person's vehicle, that's fine. But I definitely want to see the damage to their vehicle. But if they can't get both, then yes, I would say take pictures of the damage to your vehicle as well as the person who caused the damage.
Awesome. And this wasn't an accident. But it was an accident. Okay. I was at work and got out of my car and my door dinged my coworker's car. Okay. No one was in the car, of course. And I was like, man, I'm sure this is going to be pricey. Mm-hmm. And I called a friend of mine who worked for State Farm, and we were talking about the best way to handle it. And she recommended call the insurance company who, I have USAA.
Good insurance company, military.
Mm-hmm. And they took a statement as all the information. Of course, I didn't call the police. And I wanted to make sure I told my coworker that I dinged her car because it was a Lexus. Mm-hmm. And I just didn't think it was fair for me to ding it and you got a dent in a new car and no one admit that, they did it. But USA always rises to the occasion and takes care of the matters. And it was, they did ask me about pictures. Mm-hmm. They did ask me about pictures. Of course, I didn't call the police. Okay. But it was handled. But I could see in a situation where it was a accident where cars were jammed or individuals may have been hurt, the need to make sure we follow the protocol that you mentioned.
Right. Now, let me tell you something with regards to that. So you said something that was interesting. In a car accident, you have two claims. You have what's called the personal injury, the bodily injury that I come in on, but you also have something called the property damage claim, which is right. The damage that was done to the property. So in your scenario, there was not any personal/bodily injury because no one was in the vehicle. You were inside, your coworker was inside. However, there was a property damage claim. So that's what your insurance company did. It was a property damage claim that was made. They paid to get her car fixed, put her in a rental car while she was getting her car fixed, and you paid your deductible, and that's it. No harm, no foul. Now, that's in the case, like I said, that was a property damage. That wasn't any bodily injury, okay? So in a case like that, I understand. Now, I still would have said that, I would have still wanted the police to be called, but the thing is, in that matter, it was a property damage claim, and it wasn't a bodily injury claim.
Mm-hmm. And what is something that you would say to the audience as it relates to, does everyone automatically have property damage or insurance with their policy, or is that something you elect to have? I mean,
No,
it doesn't come with full coverage.
yeah, no. If you're gonna have the full coverage collision. Everyone who has valid insurance will have property damage coverage insurance to at least repair the damage to the vehicle of someone else if they are at fault. So what I mean by that, if I'm at fault and I cause damage to your vehicle, if I have valid insurance, then my insurance is supposed to pay for the damage that was done. If I have collision or not, do you have some people that may say, well, hey, if I'm at fault, it'll fix the wrongdoer's fault, but I'll be on my own as far as me fixing my vehicle if I'm at fault. But all policies have a coverage or provision in there to repair the other individual's property damage to their vehicle if in fact you were at fault. So the answer to that question is yes.
And I just want to make sure we highlight that, because some people don't dig deep and don't really dig and find out what's all included in their policies.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So we want to make sure that we take pictures of the vehicles. We want to make sure that we call the police.
Mm-hmm.
We want to make sure that we do not make statements until we've talked to an attorney.
Right. If you're injured, I'm speaking with you if you're injured. Yeah. Now, if you caused the accident, then of course you want to speak with your insurance company to tell them what happened. But I'm talking about from the standpoint if I represent the person who's been injured.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Good. All right. Okay. So is there any type of additional insurance coverage that you think I should, or anyone out there should have, to protect myself from others if I'm ever involved in a car accident?
Yes. What I would say, just like you were alluding to earlier, something that I would say that I can't tell you how many times I've had clients come to me and they didn't have this, and then it wouldn't help them for this accident, but I tell them for future accidents, is something called which stands for uninsured motorists and underinsured motorists. Normally it's underinsured motorists first, then it's uninsured motorists. What do I mean by that? Underinsured motorists means that you get involved in an accident with someone and they do not have enough coverage to compensate you for the injuries or whatever you've done. So that's called underinsured motorists, meaning they had enough. The bare minimum in Georgia is $25,000. So if you got a $25,000, $50,000 policy, that means you have the bare minimum. What do I mean by 25, 50, 25,000? It means that if you get involved in an accident, for one person, the max we're going to pay is $25,000. The middle number says if you get involved in an accident, $50,000, that's the maximum amount that we're going to pay. We don't care how many people are involved. $50,000 is going to be the max. But of that $50,000, the most that we're going to be willing to give one person is $25,000. So for me, that's the bare minimum in Georgia. That's what's required. Now, back to what I was saying. You have someone who's underinsured. They only have a $25,000 policy, but you have $50,000 in, or we'll make it $30,000 in medical bills. Well, as you can see, if they only have $25,000 and you have $30,000 in medical bills, they're $5,000 short. So that's an underinsured situation, right? So the next thing you want to have is something called uninsured. Mm-hmm. Uninsured, basically, what it says is I get hit by someone who doesn't have insurance, and so my insurance that I do have will compensate me in my car accident for my injuries. Right? There's uninsured motorists. Now, why do I say that? Because in that situation, the first one I gave you with underinsured, where the person had $25,000, but your medical bills are $30,000. If you have underinsured motorists, then your insurance will kick in, whatever the policy you have, $25,000 or $50,000, and then you will have an additional $25,000 worth of coverage, or 50, or whatever your number is. Mm-hmm. And when you get meaning uninsured, because they're both under one umbrella. If you get underinsured motorists and underinsured motorists and uninsured motorists, you want to make sure you get the one called added on, not reduced by, added on. Because what it says is whatever insurance you do have as far as we're going to add that on to whatever somebody else had or what somebody didn't have. So that helps. So I would always recommend to my clients to have what's called which stands for underinsured motorists and uninsured motorists, because it protects you if you get hit by someone who doesn't have enough coverage or someone who doesn't have any coverage. And why is that important? Because anytime a lawyer is involved, myself included, we want to make sure we have an insurance company to go after. If the person doesn't have insurance, I'm not going to go after Joe Blow who doesn't have insurance on his car. I'm not going to go. I want some insurance company to be there to be able to go after. Now, if my client has uninsured motorists and Joe Blow doesn't have insurance, it doesn't matter, because now we're going under my client's uninsured motorists. All right. And by having uninsured motorists or underinsured motorists, or you make a claim, it doesn't make your insurance go up or anything like that, because you have that, number one, on your policy as far as coverage. But that's normally that kicks into play when you were not at fault. So if you were not at fault, they're not gonna charge you more, and it's not gonna go against you. So that's one of the things that I would mention. Sometimes what I would also recommend, not saying it's mandatory, because I've had people that this happened to, there's also something called gap insurance. If you have a vehicle that's not paid for and you're still operating it, I would probably recommend some type of gap insurance. And why do I say that? Because instances like this, say for instance, you get involved in a car accident, somebody hit your car, they total your car. Mm-hmm. All right. And that happens. The insurance say, hey, Ms. Scott, your car is totaled. And normally all that means is whatever amount is worth, it's going to cost them more to repair it, for the most part. Mm-hmm. Or it has some extensive damage done to the vehicle that they think that, no, it's not safe. We don't want you driving on the road. Mm-hmm. But let's say, for instance, you were involved in a car accident, somebody hit you. Let's say, for instance, you still have a car. You still owe $15,000 on the car. All right. Mm-hmm. So you're involved in an accident. This gentleman hits you, and your car is only valued at $12,000. When they do the Kelly Blue Books or Edmund.com or whatever, the insurance company for the wrongdoer says, Ms. Scott, your car is totaled. There's nothing we can do about it. We're going to give you $12,000 for your car. Now, you owe 15, right? They're only giving you 12. So 15 minus 12, meaning that's a $3,000 difference. Guess who pays that $3,000 difference? You. So now I have a car that I no longer have that's been totaled. I can't drive. I don't have anything to do. And I still owe the lien holder $3,000 on a car that I don't even own that was totaled due to no fault of my own. So when you hear that, if you're any type of car, you're not going to be too happy. Then no, I still got to come out with $3,000. I just use that off the top of my head just for small numbers. It could be a bigger number. I'm just using that. But $3,000 is still a lot of money to come off.
Yes.
Right. So that means you'd have to pay it. However, if you have gap insurance, then gap insurance says that $3,000 difference, don't worry about it. You don't have to pay it. The gap insurance, that's why it's called gap. It kicks in and it pays whatever that $3,000 difference is. Now, if your car is paid off and you don't have a lien holder or anything like that, then I wouldn't say get gap insurance, because your car is paid for. Whatever they give you, you're going to get it in full because there's no lien holder. So in that same scenario, if your car is paid for and it's worth $12,000, now you're going to get $12,000 because your car is totaled. So I would suggest, or maybe even recommend, that if somebody's still paying on a car, and especially if it's an expensive car like a Lexus or Mercedes, really any car, but especially if you're riding in a high-priced value vehicle, I would definitely say have gap insurance.
That is some great advice. I am hoping that everyone listening today, tomorrow, next month, next year will do an assessment, because a lot of times we don't really do an assessment into that part of our life to make sure that we got all of those I's dotted and T's crossed. So you have really just shared some valuable information, and I'm hoping that people will check it out for themselves.
All right, now let me say this, but what I would definitely recommend that they should do this, like if not today, tomorrow, they need to look at their policy tonight and see if they have something called underinsured or uninsured motorists on their coverage. It'll be on your deck page. If they don't have that, that's something that I would say that they should do ASAP. And you'd be surprised, it's not that much more in your insurance per month. So just make sure they have underinsured, uninsured motorists added on. That's my advice that I would give to someone watching this program tonight.
That's great advice. That's great advice. And then my next question is, if I am injured in the car accident, what are some of the things that I can get compensated for with regards to my injuries?
Okay. Now that's kind of dealing with, I guess, what we talked about a little earlier, but there's a, like I said, there's a property damage claim and there's a personal injury / bodily injury claim. As it relates to the property damage, that's pretty straightforward. It's just getting your car fixed. Me, a lot of times I don't even have to get involved in the property damage claim so easy. The only thing that I do is tell the adjuster, you have my permission to talk to my client about getting her car fixed only. You're not to talk with her about the accident, her injuries, what happened. Only about getting her car fixed. And what I mean by that is what kind of car y'all gonna put her in, what day, what model, when she gonna bring it back, when she can come pick it up, that type of conversation. So that's the property damage claim. I only get involved if my client is having a problem with the insurance company. Property damage, that's one. The second one is bodily injury. And your question was, what are some things to be compensated for? On the bodily injury, it normally comes under 3 categories as far as coverage. Number one, your medical bills. So your bodily injury, your medical bills. So that example I used earlier about having $30,000 in the medical bills, that's one thing that would be included under personal injury / bodily injury claim. The next thing would be lost wages. If you lost time from work, you couldn't go to work because of the accident. You make $10 an hour, you miss 8 hours worth of work, that's $80. That's lost wages. You get a letter from your place of employment saying you were out. This is what your hourly wage is. This is how many days you missed. This is what you make. Have them sign it on their letterhead. Get a note from the doctor saying you couldn't go to work. I do it even if my client doesn't get a note from the doctor saying for her not to go to work. I say, hey, she tried to go to work. She couldn't go to work. And it was because of this accident. Lost wages. And then the last thing that's a little bit more difficult is your pain and suffering. We can calculate how much your medical bills. I can calculate how much your lost wages, but there's really no way for me to mathematically calculate your pain and suffering as far as that pain you have in your back, your neck, that broken leg, that surgery, that torn rotator cuff, whatever. There's no way for me to put a monetary amount. We try, but there's no way to do it. You not being able to play with your granddaughter, you not being able to go to your 40th year class reunion because all those things that you normally used to go skating and I can't go skating. Those are all things that you're pain and suffering. Believe it or not, something as simple as me not being able to be intimate with my wife or my husband, all that goes towards your pain and suffering. So I say that to say those are the things that you will be compensated for. And what happens is that's rolled into one big settlement. So they say, we're going to settle your case for X amount of dollars. That's going to cover your medical bills, your lost wages, your pain and suffering. And then the fourth thing I'm going to throw in, your attorney is going to get paid out of that settlement as well. So that settlement is going to cover all those things that I just mentioned.
Wow. And you mentioned something, when you said not able to do things that you were previously able to do. Yes. And it particularly, as you said, being intimate with your spouse. Now you had a vibrant sex life, and now your sex life is null and void.
Right.
That's a big deal.
Right. And even if it gets better, like say for instance, it was only I couldn't do it for 2 weeks or a month, you still get compensated for that. Now, if it's an ongoing, then of course you're gonna ask for more pain and suffering because that's a big part of a relationship.
It is.
And your inability to do that's going to be a lot of pain and suffering for somebody, Right. And so I say that to say that that's one of the things that you can definitely try to get compensated for. And this is another thing, we don't do it as often, but even the spouse. So let's say, for instance, that happened to me. My wife could make a claim for something called loss of consortium that deals with that same thing. Not only could I make a claim of my pain and suffering, but my wife could too. Hey, I'm used to him doing certain husbandly duties as far as my affection and intimacy. And as a result of him not being able to do it, now I want to make a claim for loss of consortium. Now, I don't do that a lot on the cases that I do have, but the law allows to do that. But I do, if my client couldn't have sex and all, I do that for my client. But I don't get involved with their spouse and all of that stuff. But there is a legal claim for that, where the spouse can make that claim as well.
And that's good information. I don't think people really understand the impact. Right. The impact, long-term, short-term impact that accidents can happen to you as an individual and to those connected to you. So I'm glad we're talking about that, because we want to be very transparent. And I've always said on my show, I want to make sure that I'm able to educate, inspire, encourage, all those things. And this piece right here is education.
Well, I appreciate it. That's what I want to do. That's my thing. I'll just be honest with you. I mean, I didn't grow up with, I don't come from no family of lawyers and all that. So I knew one lawyer, and she went to my church. I told you about Faith, but I knew one lawyer. She went to my church, and that was the one lawyer that I knew, and she practiced family law. But she was the one lawyer I know. She was my mentor. She always encouraged me. I know her name to this day, Joanne Fleming Brown. That's the person who was very helpful to me, that I have a lot of, but that's the only lawyer that I know. So I didn't know about all the stuff I'm talking about now until I actually got into law school. I didn't know this. And most of us don't, because we're not connected like some folk that have the connections where they grow up. Their dad is a lawyer. They worked in their dad's firm, or they know people, and something happened. They can call Billy Bob or whomever and make a phone call. We don't have it. Now we're getting better.
Right.
We're getting better now. But
right.
Historically, that has not been our experience. And I'll just say this, that you probably don't know, but even to this day, African Americans only constitute 5% of the ABA as far as lawyers. So when you think of all the lawyers in the United States of America, African Americans, I'm talking women and men, we're only 5%. 5%.
Wow.
So even though we're making, advancements,
right.
People are, my daughter, her experience is probably going to be different from mine. She's come to my office before when they're out from school. So she know what it's like, that daddy, I got to go to work with daddy. So she goes sit in my conference room. She has a different experience. I didn't have that experience, but her experience is going to be different. And so some of my other colleagues and friends that I know, their kids' experiences are going to be different. But that's because we're now getting to a point where, it's becoming common for, like you and I having this conversation now.
Absolutely.
Most time people can't afford to go talk to a lawyer.
Right. And that's why I say this is education, and it's free nuggets.
Right. Right. I mean, that's
free nuggets.
Right.
Yes.
And although it's free, it's still valuable, because sometimes we have a tendency to believe if it's free, then it's not any good. Because when I was doing stuff, I would charge you I can charge you $300 an hour for you to come and sit and talk to me. But the thing is, if I'm going to do it for free and you're going to get the same information, why not take advantage of it?
Take advantage of it. That's why I'm grateful that you're here.
Right.
And I'm sure that there's somebody out there watching that's truly grateful.
Right.
So I have a couple other questions for you. The next one, back to that accident.
Okay.
What suggestions would you give me or someone watching in regards to selecting an attorney? We kind of talked about it a little bit earlier.
Right.
I know we talked about word of mouth.
Right.
But are there some specific things that I should be attentive to?
All right. This is what I would suggest. And the reason why I'm sitting up is because when you're thinking about considering an attorney, this will be the first thing I would look at. When I call the lawyer, if I had to leave a message with his assistant or voicemail or whatever, how long did it take this lawyer to get back with me? And why do I say that? Because normally when a person calls and they're calling about they've been injured in a car accident, we know that they're not just calling you. They probably calling other lawyers and other people. So the first one that could get a contact to the person or start talking with the person and they feel comfortable with them, then that most likely they're going to go with them. So why do I say that? If the person, for me, I do mine within 24 hours, but for the purposes of what we're doing now, I say 48 hours. If you call a lawyer and you leave a message on his or her voicemail or with their assistant, and they don't call you back within 2 days, I wouldn't deal with that lawyer. You know why I say that? Because that lets me know that if they're not making you a priority now, before you becoming a client, when you become a client, they're definitely not going to make you a priority. And to me, it speaks volumes that they don't see the necessity for the return phone call. So that would be one of those lawyers that you hear about all the time. Lawyers don't never return phone calls. Lawyer, you call them, it take them forever to get. It doesn't necessarily have to be like that. There are lawyers like myself and others who return your phone call within 24 hours, if not the same day. That's one strike. That's one strike. All right. Number two, if you talk to the person and they seem like they being very condescending or through the phone, they just sound like they don't care. They just, you just another run-of-the-mill person that calling me today. There's no difference in how they talk with you, the enthusiasm. They're not trying to explain stuff to you. It's just like, whatever, you just another one of 5 or 10 calls I get a day. Wouldn't go with them, because that lets me know you're not gonna see me as the person, the client that I am. You're just gonna see me as another walking dollar sign, or you're just gonna see me as another claim number 45824. That's how the insurance companies identify you.
Right.
A claim number. And so you're gonna just look at me as a claim number. That's another thing for me that I would say. And then I've already told you earlier that based on word of mouth. Those are the things that I would say. And they're simple. And two of those things you can do without having to be a lawyer, not knowing anything. You can tell if a person is talking to you, right? You can tell if a person, is responsive to your phone calls. So yeah, those would be things that I would suggest. With
Great suggestions.
Yeah, and somebody that you feel comfortable, somebody that you feel comfortable. Like why grow? We say just good people. That's what we say. Good people, they make you feel like, okay, this person is really interested in what's going on. I'm just not another dollar. So I'm just not another number to him, or number or whatever. This is a person that this person is going to care about me and what I'm going through, because believe it or not, yeah, I do this every day, but I understand I'm dealing with people that have real life issues that they've been affected by this. And if I'm so nonchalant and I don't care, and it's just that's just not for me. That's just not the type of person I am, nor do I want to be that type of attorney. So for me, that's why I would say those would be the things that I would look at.
I love it. And hopefully those who are listening and watching really understand and could feel the passion about that, because that's true. If they're taking their time to get back with you, or their assistant to follow up, you're not important, regardless to the nature of the injury.
Right.
So yeah, I appreciate that honesty. And one last question that I have for you. I know we're approaching the closing of the hour. This has been such a great conversation.
Okay, good. Well, look, I'm glad that I could be helpful,
Yes. And so when we think about an attorney, and we think about acquiring one, what are some standard fees and costs associated with the attorney and handling a case of any level?
Okay. Now, as I mentioned to you earlier, I said that what's included in the settlement. I talked about the lost wages, the medical bills, the pain and suffering. I said, and also the amount that's paid to the attorney. So from a general rule, we operate on what's called a contingency fee agreement, which means that if you come to my office and you sign my contingency fee agreement, it means that my fee is going to be contingent, meaning based on what I'm able to get for you or recover for you. The standard rate is 33% if I'm able to do it by way of settlement or negotiation, and 40% if I have to file a lawsuit or we get into litigation. Now, even if like I tell my clients, even if I file a lawsuit and we get into litigation, and the case settles without me going to trial, my fee is still 40%, because there's a lot more that you do once you get into litigation, meaning filing a lawsuit. So I always tell them that the way you can determine if my fee has changed is if I file a lawsuit on your case. So now we know it's 40%. All right. So that means I'm getting 40% of whatever I'm able to recover for you. Now, I say that's the standard. There are some lawyers, and I'm not saying this is unreasonable, because it's not. There are some lawyers where their fee is 40% if it's by way of settlement, and it's 50% if it goes to litigation. So what that means is whatever your settlement amount is, that's the percentage of it that I'm going to get, and I'll make it easier for me for math. So if your case settled for $10,000 and I didn't have to file a lawsuit, 33% of $10,000 would be $3,300. That's what I get off of that $10,000 settlement. And then what's left, so you subtract the 10,000 from 3,000. I'm doing this in my head, so if my math is wrong, right. So it's somewhere around $670. So from that $670 was left. Now what you have to do is subtract your medical bills, just to make it easy for me. This is not the case, but I'm gonna say, let's say for instance your medical bill was $100. So if your medical bills was $100, you have $670 minus $100. That leaves you with $570. What's left, that goes to you. So how you handle the case is the attorney fees, subtract whatever my medical bills, and what goes to me. Now, if you get into litigation and it's 40%, it's the same thing as far as the 40%, but then when you get into litigation, like I stated, it's more, and then there's other fees that are associated. For instance, the amount of money it costs for me to file that lawsuit, that's something that's going to come out of your settlement, unless you want to give me the money up front. And in 99.9% of the cases, my clients don't have the money to pay for me to file the lawsuit. So what do they always say? Take it out the settlement. When we have to file a lawsuit, that's going to cost. If I have to get your medical records, or we have to get certain type of medical records, a lot of times the cost of getting those medical records, that's something that comes out of your settlement, unless you want to go get them yourself and pay for them. All right, your medical records. Something else that can come. We have to get into litigation. We're talking about depositions. On the deposition, I got to have a court reporter come to take your statement. Then I have to get the deposition transcript. Those are all costs that are associated with the case. If we go to trial and they have to take down the trial transcript and the trial is recorded, those are all fees. If I have to take different individuals' depositions, like the driver, the doctor that treated you, some other folks, and I'll just tell you this, doctors are not cheap. If you want them to come in court to testify live, a lot of times they $10,000. I try to do it on a video deposition. They can be $1,800 an hour, $2,000 an hour. That's just the reality of how it gets expensive when you get into litigation. So why am I saying that? Those are all the costs that will be associated with bringing forth a lawsuit if you decide that you have to go that route. So not only does the lawyer get his 40% or 50%, you have to subtract all those other things I just said, the medical records, depositions, filing the lawsuits, everything. So it can get expensive, but if it's something worth pursuing, you should, but the lawyer going to make sure that, hey, that's why I'm always taken back when I see all these commercials where they're saying, I got you this amount. And it's so misleading on some of those cases, because if you look at the bottom, the people have gotten major injuries. They don't say that. And a lot of times those are tracked. Most people not walking around with $2 million, $3 million, $4 million policy insurance. It doesn't work that way. Most people, $25,000, $50,000, $100,000. That's your average when you get in car accidents. When you see in those type of amounts and those policies, that's somebody that was either hit by an 18-wheeler that normally carries a minimum of $1 million and sometimes have umbrella policies that are 10, 20, 15 million. Or you have a company where a person was driving the company vehicle and they caused an accident. And so that's the company's policy. But for most people who are involved in car accidents, you're not getting those type of stuff. And that's the part that's always misleading and frustrating, because people who are watching TV and seeing this, they're not reading the small caption and they're not understanding that this is not your typical car accident.
Or hearing the radio ads.
I hear the radio ads. Yeah.
Well, I'm so grateful that you shared this wealth of information, and I'm sure somebody, at least me, I've gained a great deal of knowledge this evening from our conversation. And so, is there anything else that you'd like to share with the audience about upcoming events, or final words that you would like to share with them? Because I want us to kind of go in a different direction once you say those final words to them.
Okay. Well, as far as any final words, the only thing that I guess personal, I just hope that something that I've said tonight has been beneficial and helpful, to someone. This wasn't, for me to toot my horn and this is what I do. It's just a matter of me giving back. I mean, that's just the type of guy that I am. I believe in helping. I have people call me all the time. I don't even take their case, but I'll walk them through the process. Or even if I can't take their case, I'll tell them. But I'm just not. Hopefully, something I said has been beneficial. Maybe a different perspective on lawyers, so you don't think that lawyers is always about attention or the money, or if it's not any money involved, then they're not trying to be involved. I just wanted to be helpful. I just want to hope that I say something that somebody learns something. And if you're in a situation, you'll remember something I said. If your heart is pricked to call me, then fine. I want you to do that. Or if you're led to do that, that's fine. But if you don't go with me, that's fine as well. I just want you to have the information so that when you do decide to pursue this matter, at least you won't be going into it blind. That's
exactly. And I'm hoping that they will look at this website, which is www.attychrisleopold.com.
That's me.
And your email address is attychrisleopold@gmail.com. And your telephone number is 678-422-0942.
That's it.
And you're located downtown Jonesboro.
Well, I've moved. I'm in Union City now.
Okay, Union City. Okay.
Yeah, I used to be in Jonesboro tomorrow. Now I'm in Union City.
Okay, great. And so I'm just grateful, but I want to highlight just a few things about you.
Okay. I think I know where you're going with the first one, but go ahead.
You talked about your family and
Right.
parents and all that stuff, but I want you to talk about your college.
Oh yeah, well, listen, I thought you was gonna talk about how I first met you and
oh yeah, we definitely gonna talk about that.
Yeah, because that's the whole church piece. But let me go.
Yes.
So I can't get off this this meeting without telling you, and I mentioned it earlier, but telling you about one of the greatest institutions alive, Southern University in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. People know it's from the Human Jukebox, nationally known, often imitated but never duplicated. And also, it's an institution for higher learning, education, and we've been known to put out people that go into the world and do great things. So HBCU, Southern University, all day, every day.
All day, every day. I should have been a student there, but I took a different route. But both my brothers are.
I know you're. Yeah, that's what I thought you was gonna say. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk about how we met real quick. We have a few minutes to talk about how we met.
How we met. It was one year during Christmas. I was going to get a present, and I was going to the mall to get a wrapper because, of course, I don't wrap gifts. Don't know how to wrap gifts. And so, Miss Shenita was the person there, and we got to talking. And she got to telling me where she's from. We just having a conversation, innocent, just talking, nothing, just being cordial like we are. And she said who she was from, her brother. She has a brother who was in Baton Rouge with the son. And she told me, I say, Ricky McCants. I don't know Ricky McCants. He was my director of my other church. He used to play the music. He was the musician. He was the one that used to direct the choir when I was in middle school, high school, all of that. Really elementary, middle, high school, but definitely middle school and high school. Because he was at Southern ahead of us, and he was the musician that used to do us with our kids choir.
Right.
So I was like, yeah. I know Ricky would tell him that you know me, and so that was our connection years ago. That was way I know because I've been married 10 years before.
Way before you got married.
It's been I'm willing to say almost 15 years ago.
Yep.
But it's like that's how we initially met in the mall, South Lake Mall, and that's how we met. And for me to find out that's her brother and this is amazing, And he was also graduated from Southern University, So Pensacola, Florida.
And how ironic was that? That was just like the neatest experience. Like, oh my goodness, just sharing and my brother. So we've been connected since then, and I'm grateful. You've always been supportive of every initiative that I've had. I've watched you with the boys, that programs that you
let us make man. Let us make man.
Yes. So, you go beyond just the courtroom.
Right.
In law, and your family, you are really concerned about our future leaders. Yeah. And so I appreciate that. So if there's anything you want to shout out before we close out.
No, I would say, like I said, I'm just thankful for the opportunity. And I just want us to just go out and be great, as a community, just uplift and just let's bring this unity. We can do this thing and just, each one teach one and just lift as we climb. That's all I have to say.
Yes. And if you would hold for a minute, backstage, and I just want to thank you again for just the heart to serve in this capacity. And I pray continued blessings on your business and your family and everything that's connected to you. So thank you.
I welcome. I receive it. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yes. Thank you.
All right.
So I hope that you all enjoyed this segment, personal injury law with Attorney Leopold, an amazing man, not only in the field of law, but as an individual as well, man of integrity. And so if you are in search or in need of an attorney in this way, please consider him in that way or refer him to someone that you do know. So I just want to thank you all for watching. Next week, we'll have the opportunity to have a conversation about relationships for our singles. So I'm always thinking about relationships. So I'm so excited about that show as well. Again, thank you for liking and sharing the broadcast. Thank you for joining us this evening and every Thursday at 7 p.m. And if you cannot catch us on Thursdays on FAM Radio, my show is broadcasted on FAM Radio on Wednesdays at 7. So again, thank you for tuning in this evening. And remember, I love you, but God loves you most. He loves you best. Peace, love, and joy. And even through the challenges, choose to live a vibrant life. I realize sometimes it can be a challenge, particularly if you're in a car accident or any kind of challenge that happens in your life. But when you can get a grip on things, choose to live a vibrant life. Thank you again, and join us next week. And you guys take care. Good night.